Well, amongst the alternative media, there's a lot of talk about, financial collapse in the United States, collapse of the dollar, and all this type of stuff, New World Order. And a lot of it actually, I think, is snake oil. It's true, but they're not telling the exact truth. A lot of it's dramatized, and it's the art of freaking BS. Um, I'm going to tell you that I can't really predict the future, obviously, but and nobody really can. But going by the past, you know that normally, like when you got a really strong nation like the United States, you could say, "Oh, there's all these problems and that problem and all this crap," but hey, we got a very strong GDP. I know the education system's not that great, the healthcare system's not that great. Um, there's a lot of, but as far as like material wealth, the the actual earnings and spending that by the average American citizen, actual, we're not. There's not many people in this country starving like there is in other countries. In a practical way, this country really does is heads and shoulders above most countries by far, in many ways. Despite all the critics. But I'm going to say what I think is going to happen is it's not going to be one event. There's going to be like maybe certain events you can point to, but it's going to be a series of events. And just like anything, when you got a really strong, great nation like the United States, it's not going to go down inside of like 10 years real fast. I know I saw things about from Deagle.com. They predicted that the population of the United States is going to be 61 million by the year 2025, down from like 315 million, whatever it is currently, and that the GDP is going to be 20% of what it is today. I don't really buy into that, but I think by the year 2025, you're going to see some serious problems. One of the things that's really been, the warning shot is what happened in 2008, 2009. Like when Lehman Brothers went down, Bear Stearns went down. Yeah, you heard all that stuff. But a lot of people don't realize actually on, I think it was September 28th, 2009, we barely averted a real serious financial meltdown where there wouldn't have been enough liquidity in the money markets. And if that happened, that really would have shaken the faith of the U.S. dollar. Even though, it might have shut down banks for several days or a couple days or whatever the hell it is, it wouldn't have lasted forever. But as far as the confidence factor, it really would have shook the faith in the dollar a lot. I don't think any other country, though, has really got their crap together. Whether it's China, Russia. Russia doesn't have their stuff together. I mean, yeah, I got my American Russian survival channel out there, and I'm like thinking, yeah, it's good if we work together closely with the Russians for global stability, and we don't get, I mean, I'm not someone that kisses Putin's ass or anything like that, but I realize amongst the guys on the top who are not too swift, he doesn't look that bad, to tell you the truth. I know he's a KGB agent. I'm aware of that. But what I think is going to really come down, and one of the things I've been thinking about is this message from Fatima. The last message from Fatima was on October 13th, 1917. That was when Mary appeared to the three kids, but only Lucinda heard what she said. And there was a lot of predictions. He said that nations would disappear from this earth if mankind doesn't quit offending the Lord and keep sinning, and that Russia would be the instrument there whereby mankind would be punished for its sins. He says that economic depressions and global wars were punishments from God for the sins of mankind. Now, in a lot of ways, if you just look at some common sense here, like even old Pink here would tell you this, you could have all the laws on the books. You could have the greatest governmental structure. Everything could be just perfect, right? But if you got a bunch of immoral, garbage people that can't be trusted, that have no integrity, have no work ethics, no honor, don't do the right thing, whatever, I don't give a damn what system you got in place. It doesn't work. And you know what? This is 90% of the problem we got today. Each succeeding generation of Americans have lost a lot of what the essence of what good people are about. And, it's not even just a message of Fatima warning us, it's plain common sense. No matter what system you got, it doesn't work if the people are corrupted. And I can tell you, I think that's what's going on. You got each generation's getting worse and worse. That's why you're getting problems even in small governments. You're getting more and more problems even with the police, because you're getting the new generations in here. I mean, the baby boomers look bad compared to the Depression era, World War II generation. And, Generation X look worse than the baby boomers, and the millennials look worse than Generation X in general. And I could say that probably the Civil War between the states generation, was probably heads and shoulders above the Depression era World War II generation. Now, there's another thing coming up that's going to affect our economy greatly. It's going to be the global cooling. And I mentioned this on many videos before. And it's not something that actually hits. They're going to throw you some disinformation out there, because during this global cooling period that's coming up, the typical pattern is like the North Midwest, Canada, and the Northeast and the North Central USA. Not the North Midwest. I meant to say the Northeast, the North Central USA, and even the Southeast United States, but mainly the Mid-Atlantic states, New England states, Canada, Central USA are going to get a hell of a lot colder. And Europe's going to get a lot colder. Russia's going to get a lot colder. Even North Africa is going to get a lot colder. Even Japan's going to get a lot colder. And what's going to happen there is going to be a lot less growing season for food. And now that we got this record population out there, it's going to put major problems on, not just the food supply, but let me say this. Say there's enough food to feed everybody, right? And they can keep up the production. The food's going to cost more money, and therefore people are going to pay more into, things they need just to, survive in their calorie intake. They are going to have way less money for just, other goods that they just can do without. They're not going to buy new clothes. They're not going to buy cars. They're not going to buy homes. They're not going to buy furniture, appliances, electronic goods, paintings, or whatever the hell else there is, and decorations for the house, or whatever, garden tools or whatever. And every other industry out there is going to suffer, even if there's enough food, because the price is going to go up a lot more, and therefore whatever money people have is going to be going into food. And that's going to severely affect the economies, and that's going to cause layoffs and destruction of certain industries, and it could lead to wars too. That's another thing. But in Alaska, during these type of global mini ice ages and whatever we've had in the past, Alaska gets warmer. During the Maunder minimum, Alaska actually got warmer. Alaska's glaciers have all formed since the last major ice age. During the last major ice age, Alaska was warmer. Now, Canada, North Central United States, Northeast United States was super cold. Europe was super cold, and we're going into this. Now, we might even be going into the major ice age. I don't even know. That's going to be screwed up. Well, it's going to be a major change in this earth if that's the case. But what I'm saying is here, I am 100% sure that there's going to be a collapse over a longer time period. It's going to be a series of events. And what I think people need to do is go back to basics. Now, I just ordered some a rain barrel, and I actually have, other bunch of 5-gallon jugs, 8-gallon jugs for water storage. I got loads of that stuff. Probably got a few hundred gallons of water stored up. So I'm going to get a 55-gallon rain barrel rain collection system. And even though I have a well and I have a transfer box on my well with a generator that can run that well, I'm going to have a range collection system. I think that's very important. I'm also going to get some 275-gallon water bladders that work off these, polyethylene pallets, and you can actually stack them too high, even when they're full. I'm going to get a couple of those damn things. And that's something people need to do, because one of the first things where you have a problem is if there's an interruption in a water supply. Hang it up, man. And the other thing is, I want to get some more 30-year food. So, 30-year freeze-dried food. Now, if you have the food and you have the water, and you have maybe a couple solar panels or something, and you have generators, and you have medicinal supplies and things like that, you're going to be okay. I think you're going to be okay for a long time. And of course, you need to have guns too. But the deal is, I think most people, by far, they are absolutely not concerned with this in the least. And what burns me up too, because I live in Florida, right? And I can tell you, there's like, I would say this, in Florida, there's different sections of Florida. It's almost like Florida, I say it's a southern state and a true Dixie in some areas. And in other areas, it's like New York, New Jersey, New England, or some garbage like that. And like, I'm originally from New Jersey, but I'm not in the area of Florida where the loads of New Jersey people are. That's usually South Florida on the coast. But those kind of people, the only thing they're concerned about is going to the beach, going playing golf, going to dinner, going seeing a show, going out on an outing, going on a boat or something. Recreation. That's all they're worried about. And it's not like I dwell on this stuff with, the damn, survival stuff. Well, to me, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's not like, actually, everything I do for survival actually saves me money. During the wintertime, I pay hardly anything for electricity. I use my diesel. I use my Perfection 1550 heater with the cotton wick, and I use diesel and fuel in it, and that's the only heat I use. I have old cars that I fix myself, and I kind of like doing it. I like doing that stuff. It's old tech. Some of my cars are probably pretty much EMP proof too, or EMP resistant. Now, I think though one of the problems though is, if you are in a colder climate, and see, there's a problem with the infrastructure, there's a problem with the grid, God, you're screwed. And nobody is prepared for anything. People are not prepared for crap. I mean, yeah, there's some people in Jersey might be, but very, very, very few. They got so many regulations in some of these Yankee states. You can't. I mean, Florida's even kind of screwed up too in a lot of ways, but not as bad as some of the northern states. Like, you can't, put in your, you can't chop wood to, heat your house or something like that. You can't store kerosene or diesel fuel as emergency heat. You're not allowed to do that. They got noise regulations about emergency generators, even when you're using them. I mean, when they had Hurricane Sandy went through New Jersey, the government, the first thing they thought about was going around fining people, giving people city fines for disobeying a city ordinance for not getting a permit to cut a tree that fell on their house. So a tree fell on their house from Hurricane Sandy, and somebody was cutting away the tree so it wouldn't cause further damage to the house. And these jerks are going around giving people fines for hundreds of dollars because they did not get a permit to do that. See, when you're living up in a state like that, you're really going to be screwed, man. Unless you're living out in an area where there's not too many people in the government that can go around and do that type of stuff. But one of the problems is going to be that the government is actually going to make things worse. And if you look back, during the Great Depression, I had other videos out on this, but during the Great Depression, during the 1930s, before the 1930s, there was no state sales tax in any of the states. In the 1930s, I think it was about 26 different states passed sales tax in each of these states, more than half the states, because the states weren't getting enough revenue because the economy was that bad. So the first thing they think about is protecting their government racket. We got to keep the government going. And they just tax people. In 1932, that was when the national gasoline tax came into being. And I also mentioned that Prohibition from 1920 to 1933 was solely geared at people, stopping people from making their own alcohol. Because that's how Henry Ford intended his cars to be run on alcohol. Everybody wanted to run cars on alcohol. And that was the preferred fuel, and John D. Rockefeller didn't like the competition from the farmers, so the way to put them out of business was to, pay the women's suffrage movement millions of dollars, and they could go around saying how alcohol destroys families, and they made a constitutional amendment to prohibit the manufacture and sale of alcohol. And the way it passed was, well, the congressmen who passed that, it prohibited the sale and manufacture of alcohol, but all the congressmen that passed it, they had hundreds of gallons of alcohol, their own personal stashes on hand, and they were all hooked up for life, with all the alcohol they ever would drink, So they passed it. And then even during Prohibition, so it didn't end to 1933. But my point is, when we start going down the tubes here, what's going to happen is the government's going to make things worse, because actually the government made things a lot worse. Like FDR, he made things a lot worse. He extended the Great Depression. World War II didn't even get us out of the Great Depression. It was when they cut government spending greatly after World War II, that's what got us out of the Great Depression. During World War II, everybody was freaking on rations, and if they weren't on rations, they were doing the fighting. It was after World War II when the government cut spending. So what I think is the first thing that's going to happen during in different stages, the government's going to make things worse, because they are monopoly and like a workers' union unto themselves, even from that way. But then you also got academia. Always comes up with all these bullshit theories how the government's out here to save us, and actually they're 90% of the problem. And I can tell you, I think every area of the country is getting screwed up today. You could look at all, not just to Washington, D.C., you can look at state governments, you can look at local governments. They're all getting more and more corrupt because basically there's a lack of integrity, honor, and morality that's absent or being diminished with each generation. This is what happens when you turn away from, I don't want to say formal religion, but learning what's right and wrong. Everybody's out for number one, right? That's the deal. So, you can't have a system. There's no such thing as having a good system when the people are, everybody across the board is pretty much corrupted. And this is why, going right back to the message of Fatima, where Mary told Lucinda, is that wars and economic depressions are punishment from God for the sins of mankind. So even without her saying that, you can pretty much see that that's what happens, because nothing works. I don't give a damn what system you got in place, what laws you got in place. If you got garbage running the system and they're corrupt and they're no good, it ain't gonna work. There's no. You can add more laws to it, or you can throw more money at it. It's not gonna work. If you got garbage, it's just gonna be garbage, and that's really how we're getting to where we are right now. Because all they do is they try to throw more money at something, or to create more laws, and these type of things, they don't work, because the essence of the problem is the people themselves. That's where I think to survive this kind of garbage that's coming up, it's going to be very difficult, because you're in a society that's corrupt. people are not going to respect your private property rights. They're not going to respect your personal rights. They're not going to respect anything that you own. They're going to try to grab and take, just like, criminals. And that's going to be one of the major problems that's going on. That's going to happen. And I think that when this happens, I think the people that are probably going to get it the worst are going to be the most materialistic type of people. Now, I'm not saying everybody down south is better overall. Well, overall, I think they're better. But, I'm not saying everybody down south is better, as every single individual is better than every single individual up north. But I could say overall, I think the north, and especially in the big metropolitan areas, are going to get clobbered. And that may go for even places like South Florida. Because South Florida is not exactly a southern area. It's a New Jersey, New York, New England area. That's where all the Yankees go to get old and die, right? That's all that is. And even when you're looking down south in a lot of areas, it's gotten very corrupted by the Yankee influence, and the Southerners themselves have basically regressed from what their true roots are and their honor and their integrity. So there's going to be problems everywhere, but the most severe problems are going to be up north, by far. So one of the things you can do, like I said, is get water, and water bladders. The water bladders are probably the cheapest thing to go do, because they're not the most durable thing, but if you have them protected from UV light, they're going to be okay for a number of years, as long as they're not in direct sunlight. The water barrels are good for rain collection, and even water jugs, and also 30-year food, and also grow in a garden, and also some of your basic tools like knives and axes. Now, I've been buying a lot of knives and axes lately, and the better stuff I have for axes are Estwing. And Estwing are made in the USA. They're not like the best stuff in the world, but they're good. They're good. They're not garbage. And K-Bars is one of the better knives I have. But then I got a lot of stuff that's just Chinese and Pakistani stuff. But I got a lot of that stuff too, because I want to have spares. Because you never know. You might take something with you, and you figure there's a risk that you might drop it or break it or lose it or something. You might want to take the junk with you, the $10 knife or something like that. So if something happens, if you say you're, I don't know, something happens with the knife or something, somehow you lose it or something, it's not going to be, like, you want to have a lot of extras. So sometimes you want to have cheap stuff, you want to have tools, maybe Harbor Freight stuff, generators, inverters that can be running off your car. You want to have diesel fuel on hand, that with a diesel generator. The deal is, though, when this stuff starts going down, it's not going to happen all at once. And that I have to tell people, because these people that are in the alternative media, they always say that the end is near, the end is near. I think it's going to be a long period of time where you're going to look back over maybe 10 or 20 years, and you're going to say, holy smokes, the United States has radically changed from what it was. Just as maybe we can say, well, look how much the United States has changed from, I don't know, from 1960 to the year 2000. It's unimaginable back in 1960 that we would have ever been in the Vietnam War, that we would have had all the, the social upheaval. We would have went through what was normal in 1960 is radically changed by the year 2000. So, and since we've broken down society that much in 40-year span, to go from 2000 to, say, even 2025 is going to be probably more so, because I think from the year 2000 to even 2017, things have broken down even more so than from 1960 to the year 2000. So it's probably possible that by the year 2025, the United States is going to be pretty much unrecognizable. Although I can't really go along with the Deagle.com predictions of 61 million population, the purchasing parity, purchasing PPP to purchasing power parity being 20% of what it is today, that our economy and our military are going to be like a tiny fraction of what China is. I think China's got problems too, and I actually think because I think China would grow much more rapidly. But I think one thing that shoots them in the foot is their communist government. They don't have a laissez-faire capitalistic system. Neither does Russia. Nowhere does. No place has a laissez-faire capitalist system. No place does. So the disadvantages that the United States has are present through pretty much every nation in the world. I mean, I guess the main thing with China has an advantage that they don't have the EPA breathing down their neck with OSHA and safety regs and health care, and all this kind of crap. If you hire people, you can't do this. There's not that many regulations in a lot of ways. That helps them out, but still, the communist government really puts the brakes on the Chinese economy. If the government in the United States went completely under, we'd probably have a rebirth overnight. Now, it's not gonna be a rebirth for the people that always cry and they want something from government, but it's gonna be a rebirth for people that are workers, because you can actually, produce something without having. I mean, I don't care what it is. I mean, somebody says, like one of the examples was, I think it was John Stossel went out there and he showed like you couldn't even have a lemonade stand out on a street corner without having a permit, and all these kind of business license, safety license, I don't know, approval from, I don't know, the Board of Health or something, or whatever the hell it is. And those things are just going to go right out the door. It's going to go right out the door if the government actually totally collapses and they don't regulate things. It's just going to be, the one business rule is going to be caveat emptor, buyer beware. And dishonest vendors, as was happened in the past, temporarily they make money, but they go out of business pretty quick when people get the word that guy's no damn good. They find out real quick. But I do think that there might be, I don't want to think this, but there might be it might be that Russia is, and I don't think Russia wants to start any kind of war. I know Putin's not a saint, but I don't think he wants to start a war. But it might just happen that way. I got some faith in exactly what Mary was telling to. I know a lot of people don't believe that stuff, but with the message of Fatima, but it's not like she's saying Russia's evil. She's like saying Russia's going to be the instrument that's going to chastise mankind for its sins, and that may be. It wouldn't take that much to really upset the apple cart in the United States financial system. It wouldn't take much at all. I mean, it could be anything. It could be, like we had in 1993, there was I don't know, people probably don't remember, there was a bomb at the bottom of the World Trade Center that did minor damage. Then in 2001, September 11th, they had the World Trade Centers came down, right? Well, I know it was the government did it and all that crap, but if you extrapolate, I don't know, and maybe it's not a good comparison, but if you look at no damage to the World Trade Center to the World Trade Center coming down, but the rest of New York was fine. Well, what about the financial district being heavily damaged and becoming radioactive for the next so many centuries? What the hell would that do to the United States economy? That could be. It wouldn't take much to do that. It doesn't even have to be Russia doing it. It could be anybody, because a lot of their weapons have not been secured since the Soviet Union broke up. I don't know. They've been talking about this crap for years. I don't know. We could one thing. It just could be one thing. So anyway, and something like that would not be the death blow to the United States. It would just be one other thing that leads to something else, that leads to something else, that leads to something else, that leads to something else. It's not like one thing is going to do it. There's going to be a series of events. And being that I've been a student of many years ago, many decades ago, I was a student of Roman history. It's interesting how nobody really knew when the empire was coming down. It could have come down even in 70 A.D. when they had the year of the four emperors. They had, after Nero croaked and died, I think he killed himself or something. And you had Otho, the 73-year-old, who was the emperor for a little while, and he was killed. Then Galba, he was killed. Then Vitellian, he was like a ruthless, corrupt guy. He was killed. Then Vespasian came, or I don't know if I'm not saying that right, but I think that's how I say it, Vespasian, Vesperian, or whatever his name is, Vespasian. He came in play, right? And he was emperor. And that's when he actually brought back Rome from the brink. And there was the age of the two Antonis, 180-year Pax Romana. And there was times, even in a later empire, under Aurelian and Probus, where things looked like it was coming back. But those are like over many periods of time. Like the Pax Romana lasted 180 years. What's going on in the United States it's going really quick. And actually, the reality behind the situation is that the United States is not dying a natural death. It's being murdered by the globalists. It's kind of like they want to knock down all national sovereignty and meld this into the North Atlantic Trade Organization. Europe's going to be in with the European Union. There's going to be a Pacific Theater and an African Union, a South American Union, and I don't think it's going to work anyway at all. Because actually, if you'll start looking at, I'm going to tell you something else just as a side note. If you look in our Constitution, the original Constitution, it says that there should be not more than 30,000 constituents for each representative. Now, we got 435 representatives in the House of Representatives in the first body of Congress, right? We got way over 300 million people. So that puts us like way over 700,000 people per each representative in the House of Representatives. There's no representative government at all, as even at now. It's an illusion. It's a joke, man. It's a joke. And these guys are all talking amongst each other. We got to fix the problem, raise taxes, put more rules in, more break. You know what? When all that shit goes out the window, it's going to be bad for some people, and it's going to be serious adjustment. That's why you got to have food, fire, power, and fuel. But it's going to be really, really bad for the narcissistic. Hooray for me! Live for today. What are we doing tonight? I'm bored. What are we doing on a weekend? This is actually my generation, which is the baby boomers. Most of them I can't stand. They are, playing golf, they're going to dinner. I don't know. It's like they change out styles. They change out buying new cars every couple of years and stuff. To me, it's a big waste of money. Big waste of money. They need to get essentials, but when shit goes down, those are going to be the first people at your throat trying to get what you got, and I'm like, to hell with them. But this is the reality thing, the way things will come down. It's not going to be one event. It's going to be a long, long, slow process with a series of events. That's why you should not be strung out on a wire like, this is one of the games that Alex Jones plays. He got everybody on the edge. He's constantly freaking got the fear button. It's like, do your prepping, do something every once in a while. Don't go overboard on it. Do something here and there. Instead of going out and spending money on some recreational bullshit or movies or entertainment, go buy yourself, I don't know, an S-Wing axe hatchet or something like that, camp axe. Go buy yourself some water purification systems or purification tablets. Go buy yourself some ammo, magazines, whatever. Every once in a while, do that. Stay away from the garbage with the, entertainment fluff, crap that's not going to, I mean, not completely, but the more, if you start doing this stuff a little bit at a time, a little $30 here, $50 here, it all adds up. Buy a compass, buy GPS, I don't know. Buy like extra flashlights or whatever. I don't know. Rechargeable batteries and solar chargers. And when you do these things, after a period of time, after maybe, couple years, you got a lot of stuff. It adds up pretty quick. And these other people, they're showing off. They're going out to the clubs. They're going out to the golf courses. And this is not just, I don't even want to say it's millennials. It's the baby boomers too. It's everybody, man. The only people I respect today, and even these people aren't even that hardcore, are the Depression era people. A lot of those people still got that work ethic, frugality. They're not. But even them, a lot of them are out there buying new furniture, buying this, buying that. You know what I mean? Wasting money. They're going to be screwed too. So, I'm real old school. So, I ain't worried about it. My biggest problem is that even though I don't tell people around me what I do exactly, I try to help people on the internet, but if somebody realizes I'm running a generator, somebody realizes I'm not starving to death or something, they're going to be coming after what I got. And I ain't going to let them have it. I'll let them have it. Literally, that's what I'll do, So, we'll see how this works out. But there is a collapse coming, but it's not going to be, you're never going to be able to pinpoint one single event. Now, of course, if there's a nuclear dirty bomb that goes off in the financial district of New York, well, somebody will say that was the event that led to the end. But even that event is not going to knock out the whole United States. Maybe there's going to be a big earthquake in the new Madrid line or something. I don't know, because it was, because we're going into the new different celestial, what do you call that again? It's almost like when you're talking about the Maunder minimum, that we can possibly be going into another event like where there's going to be a lot more earthquakes and volcanoes, and some people speculate that might be the time the new Madrid line goes off, and it went off today. It would cause all these oil pipelines to disrupt and gas pipelines to disrupt. But even that wouldn't be the end of everything. But it's like one thing leads to another. It's going to be a slow, ongoing process. And unfortunately, the government itself is going to make it worse, because they always have made it worse. The government, I don't even want to use, maybe I shouldn't use that word, because it's like the elite. In other words, who the hell actually is behind the government? The big money guys. It's like the government's used as something to control people, to keep us out of their class. That's how we got global serfdom, through governments. Now, when you have government of the people, by the people, for the people, you don't have that. But, we don't have that in the least. We got government of the elite. Like I mentioned about the House of Representatives, how little we have actual representation, even in the House of Representatives. We don't have representation in the presidency. Maybe this Trump guy might be okay, maybe not, but I don't know. But then also, if you're looking at the Supreme Court, we got some jackasses in robes, which it never used to be like this. The people in the Supreme Court never were able, before the war between the states, the people in the Supreme Court were never able to totally overturn the Constitution the way they are today. You know how they, like when they made a decision like marriage is between a man and a man and a woman and a woman. There's absolutely no legal precedent upon that, and everybody in all these states disagree with it, and most of the population disagrees with it. But the Supreme Court decided just to say, what the hell does that even have to do with the Constitution anyway? Nothing, right? So why they even weighing in on it? Because that was just some kind of political bullshit that the Obama administration wanted. But the thing is, the Supreme Court is not supposed to have that kind of power. The interpretation of the Constitution could be left up to the states and also up to the people themselves. The people. Like if you talk like a referendum vote and you said, what do the people think about this law that the ruling that, because the Supreme Court actually makes the law when they make these rulings. And if you just put it to the people, let's vote on what do you think about what the Supreme Court did here? And everybody says no. Well, that's the way it should be, and that's actually more like how it was before the war between the states. After the war between the states, what happened is we got 100% dictatorship. But I think what's coming down is that where the government is going to totally collapse across the world is not just because of the corruption, but also this global mini ice age, which might even be a major ice age. It's going to cause all the economies in the world to suffer because everybody's going to put most of their money into food, or more of their money into food. Even if it's 10% more of their money into food prices, it's going to cause that much less money to go into all these other companies that are, businesses out there that are, that are part of the GDP of the country, and it's going to have a snowball effect, literally. Pardon the pun, but that's exactly what's going to happen. So, I mean, aside from the religious angle of the message of Fatima, there's a common sense angle of, corrupt. See, before there was Jesus around, even in Rome, there was like what you call the Roman honor and the Roman virtue. A lot of people today think of Hollywood movies about Rome. It was so corrupt and everything. Actually, that's not what built Rome. What made Rome was not corruption. It was corrupt in some areas and it became corrupt later on. But the real fabric of Rome was the Roman honor and the Roman virtue. And integrity, honesty. Not like Italy is today, I guess. If you walk down the street in Italy, South Italy today, you get pickpocketed. It's not, it was a lot different. Back in the day, there was a little, in the Roman times, in the early Roman times, it was much different. And this is before there was a Jesus, and before there was a King James Bible. So I'm pointing out is that, what builds a nation is not even so much the system that we have, but it's the integrity, honor, and work ethic of the people themselves. You can have the best system in the world, and if you have garbage people that are just doing whatever the hell they want, it ain't going to work. How many countries try to emulate the United States and install a constitution that mimicked the United States Constitution? It still didn't work. That's because the people there were corrupt. And that's another reason why we should be very careful what people we bring into the United States. Because if we bring in garbage, it's going to affect our country. If we bring in people that are not, of stellar, morals and virtue. Now, it'd be nice if you bring in foreigners that are better than the average American fabric today, because the average American fabric today is actually going downhill. But if you bring in people that are worse, it's going to bring down the United States even faster. It's not just the system. Now, that goes along with religion, but before religion was around, it was well understood what, honor, virtue, integrity, work ethic, what it all meant. And that's been lacking more and more so with each succeeding generation in the United States. This is 99% of our problem. So, so when the government goes away, the only people who are going to survive are going to be the industrious, honorable, and people that are ready to stand up on their own 2 feet and defend themselves. The whiners are going to be dead. That's all there is to it. They're going to be done. They're going to go away. So I'll just leave you with that thought. And like I said, I don't think things are not going to happen in one shot. Like the alternative media is always putting everybody on edge. Like, this is it. It's going to happen now. And the IMF is doing this. And the politicians are doing that. And this is happening. And you know what I mean? They're always keeping you on edge. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process, man. It's actually unfolding before our eyes right now. But it's so slow, you don't notice it. It's almost like waiting for, an oak tree to grow. It's not going to happen that fast. It might take 10, 20 years before the United States is going to be totally unrecognizable from what it is today. But then, that's going to be the seeds of the rebirth. And the only people that are going to make the rebirth are the honorable people that are virtuous and have that work ethic and have the integrity. Other people that are always out to screw people over or to try to get me, or to try to depend upon the government or get something for nothing, they're going to go away because they're not going to be supported by either the free entrepreneurial society, and they're definitely not going to be supported by the government because the government's going to go away completely. So in the end, it's going to work out. But it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to be a lot of stages that it's going to lead us into this abyss. And then when we get out of it, it's going to be a lot of stages of us getting out of it. Because it's going to be like crawling up a freaking